what I wanted to mention, and
this sure has caused a lot of confusion because there are so many different opinions about. I mean, this is one of the most popular questions that you field all the time. Who was the Pharaoh at the time of the Exodus?
Yeah, and of course we tackle that in my documentary, in my book, and the documentary also on the Jerusalem Lights channel. But watch the Fall of Gods of Egypt. That's their homework assignment for this week, because it's beautifully done, and they'll understand all of these connections to God, bringing them and putting them in their place. And what I want to mention is I'm not going to talk about all the plagues, but I'm going to address in what is the first series of plagues. And if you can see what I'm putting on the screen right now, okay, can you see that, Rabbi?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the tomb of Seti, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is Seti, who was the father of Ramesses the Great. And pardon me again, let me get something here. I'm getting a little dry in the mouth here. Too much hot air coming out of my mouth, Rabbi. It's drying me out here. Anyway, I'm not going to tackle all the problems with Ramesses the Great. He is not the Pharaoh of the Exodus, and there's so many reasons why. But to point out, this is his father's tomb in Egypt, and within this tomb is a huge relief. You can see the ceiling up here. This is called the Celestial Cow. And over on each side of it is a lengthy inscription. And what this tells us is it talks about a time before the time of Seti that Egypt faced a existential disaster. It's also, the Celestial Cow inscription is also called the destruction of mankind. And by mankind in the inscriptions, it means the people of Egypt, because they were the world power in their day. And it's talking about all of these things that came in the aftermath of this near destruction of the people of Egypt. And one of the things it talks about, it talks about the divine punishment on the Egyptians. It came from the gods. A revolt by non-Egyptians called the enemies of Ra, or Re. It speaks of the Nile running red with blood, and magicians trying to duplicate the Nile turning to blood using pigments. And this is, if you don't know the oral tradition, you don't know, or wait, I'm sorry, doesn't this week's Parsha say that they tried to replicate each of the first three plagues? Mm-hmm. Boy, I'm sorry about the coughing. Anyway, this inscription itself talks about magicians trying to duplicate the plague of blood of the Nile. And then this is the amazing thing. This same inscription references a god called I am who I am. I think that's so remarkable.
It's so
now, I want
amazing.
to go up here real quickly.
I don't understand how it is that there are so many secular scholars that claim that there's no archaeological evidence to the story of the Exodus when they find something like this that literally parallels the biblical narrative.
Well, you know what, Rabbi? If you don't believe something, you're not going to go looking for it. People ask me why the Ark of the Covenant hasn't been found. Well, there are reasons from Hashem why, but the other reason is that most people don't believe it ever existed in the first place. If you don't believe in the Exodus, you're not going to even set out to prove it. In fact, all of those books I've read where they set out to disprove it do a very bad job, because one of the first things that they do, one of the first mistakes they make, is they ignore your sources, Rabbi. The sources of they don't go back to the Hebrew of the Torah, nor do they go to your oral tradition and other sources that we've mentioned, like this wonderful, we mentioned this, Perkei de Rabbi Eliezer, the Sefer HaYashar, the Seder HaOlam, the chronology. This is the father. This is Pepi the First. This is my research. I think confirms that this is the father of the Pharaoh of the oppression, and the smaller statue inside this life-size statue is Pepi II. This is the father. This is the son who was the Pharaoh of the oppression. I don't have a picture of the Pharaoh of the Exodus, who only ruled 1 year. I have a statue of a little person, of a midget, that is from that same dynasty. But this is the other thing I want to show people. This is the so-called Ipuwer Papyrus, and it's in the Netherlands in a museum, and it is written in hieratic, which is a cursive form of the ancient Egyptian language. They have hieroglyphs, which was like an official language that was put on temples and official buildings, but this was the more common cursive form of hieroglyphs, and it was translated in 1908 and published by Sir Alan Gardner as it was called The Admonitions of an Egyptian Sage, and the author is called Ipuwer. And we showed how the celestial cow spoke of the Nile running red with blood. In Exodus 4:9, God instructs Moses. He said, "You shall take some water from the Nile and spill it on the ground, and the water that you take from the Nile will turn to blood on the ground." And this is from Ipuwer. This is from this papyrus. "Behold, Egypt is poured out like water. He who poured water on the ground has captured the strong man in misery." It further says in Ipuwer, "Plague is throughout the land, blood is everywhere." It also says in verse 2, 210 of Ipuwer, "Forsooth the river is blood." And it makes allusion to the references to the other plagues, the plague of frogs. Exodus 8:2 talks about Aaron stretching forth his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frog, singular, came up, and they covered the land. And by the way, Rabbi, what was the most horrific? What was the central thing about the plague of the frogs that almost drove people insane? Wasn't it the noise?
The sound that they made. The
sound. And here's what it says in Ipuwer: "Oh, that the earth would cease from noise and the tumult no more." Wow. And it says we have the plague of hail. Moses pointed his staff at the sky. God caused thunder and hail with lightning striking the ground. God made it hail on the land of Egypt. There was hail with lightning flashing among the hailstones. In the Ipuwer Papyrus, it says, "Forsooth, gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire, while the king's palace stands firm and endures." Trees are destroyed. The plague of boils. Let me show if I can show you. Moses threw ashes into the air. It caused a rash breaking out in boils in man or beast. The master symbolist, the Hartumim as they're called, could not stand before Moses as a result of the rash. Ipuwer Papyrus says, "Forsooth, hair has fallen out. Forsooth, animals and their hearts weep, cattle moan, because the state of the land." And I'll see if I can get to this. These are all of the this is, by the way, from my PowerPoint presentation, where I compare verse by verse of each plague and where they are replicated in the. Okay, this is during the time of the Sixth Dynasty, Rabbi. There were two other dynasties ruling, because they ruled from Memphis and from east of the Delta, and also 400 miles south. Because you have a country that big, you need at least 2 or 3 administrative centers. So you had other rulers, and at the same time you had Hatshepsut and her brother Thutmose II. Look at the skin of Hatshepsut. Look, see, these are scars from boils on her corpse, and when you see the front side of Thutmose II. By the way, Thutmose is the Greek version of his name. His real name was Dehudimosh. And then here we have CAT scans of the mummies. Look at this. This is the neck of Thutmose, covered with the scarring from boils. And this is the nanny, or the nurse, for his wife, Hatshepsut. Look at all the scarring and look at all the skin. Still, after all these centuries, you can see the aftermath of boils on the skin of those people.
Amazing.
And we could go through the other ones. We have the plague of insects. We have the plague of boils. And we can talk about those more next week when we speak of the plague. I believe the last plague that the Hartumim could not replicate was the plague of lice. And they said, surely this is the finger of God.
Really spellbinding stuff that you have there, Jim. And again, it's just today I was online and I read an article that said it was a very scholarly presentation, and it said that the archaeologists and scholars have found absolutely no proof for the whole Exodus narrative, but the things that you're showing us,
because they don't want to.
But these things they seem to be totally
Rabbi.
Irrefutable. It's just amazing the things that you're mentioning.
I've mentioned this before. In San Diego, 2015, they had a seminar, and they brought all of these specialists in the Middle East archaeology, historians. They had different people from different disciplines, and they all showed over 90 references to Exodus-like events in an array of Egyptian sources, historical, legends, tombs, inscriptions. And they came to the same conclusion. Well, this must be where the people of Israel got their idea for the Exodus story. So, it's like the old Simon and Garfunkel song, the boxer. A man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest.
And on that note, anyway, I know I'm not speaking only for myself when I say we're really looking forward to continuing this topic. So
Amen.
Let's bless our viewers and listeners with a wonderful, wonderful week. And don't forget about the positive commandment every day to remember that Hashem not only took us out, but takes us out from Egypt all the time.